Welcome to this episode of Expedition to Soul. This is a coffee chat replay. So, once per week, I host a coffee chat in our community space. It's hosted in a software called Circle. It's where we host our communities for our programming. And every Sunday, most every Sunday, I host a coffee chat in there where we vision cast for the week ahead. We use practical tools like planning, but also the magical act of vision casting to align our lives to the way that we want to feel. And I usually bring a little extra oomph to these conversations as well. So today's podcast episode is a coffee chat replay. Sit back, unwind, grab a pen and paper, grab your planner, your vision board, and let's freaking do this. If the word witch makes you feel full of power and excitement, if you love personal development but loathe boring love and light conversation, if a sexy combo of witchery and inner work piques your interest, you're in the right place. Welcome home, Magic Maker, and welcome to Expedition to Soul, the podcast brought to you by the Sisters Enchanted. When you are thinking about your week ahead, there can be a lot of resistance to planning because it feels like so many of us feel like we're bad at planning or like we have been failures at planning. We don't know how to do it. Nothing ever goes the way we plan. So why bother? Specifically with things like meal planning. Morning routines, nothing goes as planned. You don't follow through. So why bother planning to begin with? Well, that's exactly why you do want to plan. Even if it doesn't work out the way that you thought it would, even if you don't follow through, by continuing to do the process, eventually you will find a system, a rhythm that works for you. And even if it is just taking this small moment in time to align your energy to have some sort of like energetic experience within yourself to say, well, what am I doing this week that will make me feel the way I want to feel? What do I have in store for myself this week that's in alignment with where I want to go versus misaligned with where I want to be going and what I want to be doing with my life? So taking this time, whether you follow through or not, it can help you to have self-reflection. So, in a lot of ways, like a tarot reading might, or doing some meditation might help you to uncover a thought that you didn't even realize you were thinking. Planning for the week ahead can be similar in nature and a beautiful part of a spiritual practice. And again, doing it week after week after week will help you to find the structure, the strategy that works the best for you. Is it best for you to have like this totally color coded, filled in idea, vision for the week ahead? Or is it better for you to just know, what are my big things? What are my appointments? What are my time commitments? How am I getting there? Where is there time for myself? And have just more of a overarching view of what's happening. I prefer the overarching view personally. I like to know this is where I have to be when I have to be there. And then sort of what else can fit in around that in a way that feels really good to me and my energetic capacity. So I know that I have more energy in the mornings than I do in the afternoons and the evenings. So what do I have to do? And is there room to get that done? So looking at your week ahead is really a practice in visioning and aligning your energy, aligning your actions with the life that you want to be living. Now, Patty mentioned this. We do have Mercury in retrograde right now. And I think Mercury moved into Leo, if I'm not mistaken. And it is definitely noticeable on my end. I'm not one who ever really pays much attention to Mercury retrograde. I don't have tons of retrograde activity that happens where I'm like, oh man, it's definitely a Mercury retrograde. But this Mercury retrograde, I feel like in my life did not come to play. And it feels like everything has been a little more challenging than typical. It's been more challenging for me to stay motivated, to have my regular level of energy. And based on what Naomi talked about last week with failures just being sort of course corrections and not true failures, and my energy right now, I thought we would talk today about figuring out when to hold them and when to fold them when it comes to your plans, your visions, and the things that you set out to do in your life. And I've also heard from a few of our community members who feel like They need to just rest and relax and like take their foot off the gas. Now, we were hosting this summer our Good Witch, Bad Bitch Summer Initiative. And I think that myself, and I know a few of you, have Good Witch, Bad Bitched a little too hard. Like we need a break, we need a rest and a reset. So, how do we know the difference between giving up and just knowing that it's time to let the intention go? It's time to let the goal go. How do we know the difference? Because there is a difference. When something feels hard or you're having some resistance to it, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's time to fold. It might still be time to hold and keep working on it. And the other side of that is there are plenty of times where it's just time to let it go, let it be, put it to rest, and know that it's not for you right now. It's not in alignment with your energy. It's not in alignment with your time capacity. And how do we know the difference? So, in your day to day life, I think that it's really important to recognize when you have just exhausted your energetic capacity. So, if you sit down today and you vision for the week ahead, you put all of these activities on there and you're going to clean out all the cabinets and you're also going to go to dinner with this person and you're going to go on a hike and you're going to go to work and you've really loaded your schedule. But then come Wednesday, you're just exhausted, you're snapping at people. The energetic you today that makes that plan is different than the you that just lived through the rest of Sunday, all of Monday, all of Tuesday, all of Wednesday. It's a different energetic version of you. Because remember, you can only control yourself, not the rest of the world, weirdly enough. So once you start to go out into the world, all this stuff sort of happens and it impacts our energy. And you will be a different energetic you on Wednesday than you are today. And it's okay to say, I was highly ambitious on Sunday. I am not so ambitious come 6 p.m. on Wednesday. And then take something off your list for the week. It doesn't make you a failure. It doesn't mean that you can't do the things you set out to do or that there's something wrong with you or you're not doing it right. It just means that you have a different energetic capacity at that point, and it's time to lay some of that plan to rest. Let some of it go for another day. Now, if every single week for 3 months straight this happens to you, then it's time to zoom out on your life and say, all right, I tend to have a habit of thinking I can do more than I actually can. So now I'm going to plan less for my week and give myself plenty of space to relax. So if you find yourself doing this over and over and over again, it is time to just shift gears and accommodate for who you actually are, the energy that you have, and not all of these things that your mind tells you you should be doing. So in your day-to-day life, you really want to just look at that energetic capacity. What did you say you wanted to do, but what do you actually have the capacity, the battery power to be doing? And it is okay to say, I was ambitious when I made this to-do list for today, and I'm not going to get all of this done. And then switch it to another day, move it to next week, ask for help, whatever it is that you have to do. So some of this, when to hold it, when to fold it, is a day by day situation. But what about these bigger things, these bigger elements of our lives? So I've got a couple of examples for you because I do think that there is a tendency for people, for us as humans, to give up prematurely when things feel hard, overwhelming, like there's one roadblock after another. And your mind starts to do that thing your brain does when it says, you don't know what you're doing. You're not good enough for this. You don't have the tools and resources. What were you thinking? Of course you can't do this. And those mind gremlins show up and just start chattering at you. Now, in those moments, you really have to do the check-in with yourself and say, why am I doing this to begin with? What's actually true about this situation? Often we feel like that the hardness, the resistance means something about us, but it's really just a true part of the experience. So I have two examples to share about this in my life to help you understand and see where this might relate to you. One is starting the Sisters Enchanted, which I know not everybody starts businesses, but I started the Sisters Enchanted May 2016. From May till about September, I just kept losing money, losing money, losing money. And I did not have money to lose, mind you. There was no savings account. My husband and I very much got by every single week, Sundays with the sale flyers at the grocery store, figuring out how we were going to eat the most we could, right? That week on with our toddler and whatnot. And so in that moment, everything was hard. And I could have said, it's time to let go of this dream, this idea. It's too hard. I work on it every single day. I eat, sleep, and breathe this new idea. I'm up at 2 a.m. working on it while my toddler sleeps. And then I still have to work my other job, in the afternoons. And I could easily have folded and said, this is not the time to hold. It's the time to fold. But the truth of the matter was, building a business is hard. It just is hard. There was no part of it that was going to be easy. So I had to take those mind gremlins that said, you're making bad choices for your family. You are wasting money. You're wasting time. What are you thinking? Who do you think you are to do this? And I had to say, none of that's true. And what's actually true is it's just a hard thing. It's just a hard thing to do and keep going. And it wasn't until August 2017, over a year later, a year and 3 months later, that I really felt like, man, I did it. I held and I did it. But the amount of times through that year and 3 months that I wanted to fold because I thought it's just not the right time. I'm not the right person. I don't have the right financial resources. I don't have enough help. I mean, in that time I had a toddler. I had a baby, in May 2017. And so many times that I wanted to say, it's just not the right time. It's too hard right now. But I had to ask, why am I doing this? And what's the truth about this? The truth is it's a hard thing to do. So if it's supposed to be hard, what's my expectation? Where's that out of alignment with what's actually happening, and adjust? Now, another example that many people here, I think many people here on the replay can relate to. 2 years ago, I moved my grandparents who are aging. My grandmother just turned 86. My grandfather will be 88 in October. And my grandfather has dementia. They lived in Ohio. They lived there for 35 years. And I live in Connecticut. And it got to the point where we were having to go stay with them frequently. There'd be a medical emergency or something would happen. And my husband was having to get in the car and basically drive 12 hours nonstop to get to them. And it was happening a few times a year. And we were having to go visit them frequently. And I said, you need to move to Connecticut. Now, I sort of sneakily got it in there. But when it came time to actually commit and sign the paperwork, my grandmother made it so hard. She tried to back out on several occasions, tried to tell me it was a bad plan. Just all of these things that she did to make it a miserable experience. And there were so many times in like a 5-month period that I thought to myself, you know what? It's not worth it. It's too hard. It's going to ruin our relationship. It's not worth my time and effort. No one's appreciating it. She's not appreciating it. And I wanted to say, just stay where you are then. We will find a place where you are and we'll just have to keep coming to visit you. And I really wanted to fold on my effort to move her. And I had to ask myself again that question, why am I doing this? What is the desired outcome? What is it worth to me to keep going and move through this very challenging situation and all of the roadblocks that are being put up in front of me with this? And everything that makes me feel like the universe, God, creator, whatever you want to call that, is telling me to just stop, throw in the towel. It's not worth it. Why is it that I want to push through? And I had to ask those same questions. What about me thinks that this should be easy? I'm asking 2 elderly people who have had the same life for 35 years to give up an element of control to their granddaughter and move a third of the way across the country. away from everything that they know and love. Of course, that's not going to be easy. Of course, that's going to be hard. And so when we are asking ourselves, do I hold or do I fold? And I have a couple examples of folding too. Those are coming next. We have to ask, what about this is making me think? What is happening in my mind that's making me think I need to give up on my dream or give up on my plan or the thing that I'm working so hard to do? And if it's hard, it's overwhelming, it's not going as you thought it would, have a real truth conversation with you. What part of you was looking for something easy that just wasn't meant to be easy? What part of you thought that, this would be a cakewalk because you see other people doing it, but you don't know that there's 5 months, 5 years behind what makes it look like a cakewalk for them. I hear other people, oh, I moved my parents into assisted living, or my grandparents. In my case, it's my grandparents, but often I hear I moved my parents to assisted living, or they sold their house and now they're in this retirement community and they just love it. And here I am in constant like battles with my grandmother over getting her where she needs to be for the sake of all of us and all of our lives and their support. And it wasn't easy, but these other people that are saying, oh, they just love it, they don't share the fact that there was a year-long journey beforehand, because nobody asks and nobody wants to be negative and nobody likes to hear a conversation where someone sits down and just complains, right? I don't often sit down and say how damn hard, I mean, I guess I do, starting the Sisters Enchanted was. I mean, the first we're 8 years in, 8.5 almost. The first 3 to 4 years, man, was that hard. It's still hard, but that was really, 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 really hard. So if it looks easy, you got to ask, where was the hard no one's telling me about, for one? And is this meant to be easy before you decide to fold and give up on whatever that thing is for you? I see this with health and people saying, like I started walking 10 minutes a day, I cut out carbs and I'm no healthier, 2 months later. But there's 100 other questions to ask there. How are you sleeping? Like what else are you doing during the day? How sedentary are you the rest of the day? What else are you putting in your body? What are you consuming on TV that's making you think that you got to be a certain way and that it needs to happen overnight? And so when we decide, if it's hard, it's overwhelming, not going as planned, feels like we're never going to get there, really have to ask ourselves, why am I doing this? And where is my expectation for how this should go in a misalignment with how it is in reality? And so often the things we want to do are challenging. If they weren't challenging, we would all just be walking around with like whatever we wanted. At the blink of an eye. And that's not how that happens. Now, when do you just fold though? When do you decide it's just time to hold them, fold them? It's time to fold them in this case. And I think that there's a lot of times that there's a valid reason or a valid experience where it's time to just let something go, whether it's forever or just for a moment, or it's a temporary sort of letting go. If you find yourself really being full body, emotionally exhausted to the point of like physical illness, it is time to let something go. If you're making very reactive sort of decisions over and over again. Now, I'm not talking one emotionally reactive decision. I made plenty of those starting the Sisters Enchanted and moving my grandparents. But it wasn't like a vicious cycle of just reactive emotional decision after reactive emotional decision. If you find yourself really reacting instead of figuring out how to pull back when you've reacted and get back in the driver's seat, it's probably time to step back and step away from this thing that you have been working on. Now, I've got two examples for you to help you maybe see this in your life. The first one's a Sisters Enchanted example, and another one's a home life example. So an example for us, and this is like a 50-50, kind of holding, kind of folding situation. And the thing that I'm going to share here is with our Sisters Enchanted Lunar Planner. Now, we've made that 2 years in a row. We're making it this year also, so don't worry. We have not folded on making the planner. But the first year that we were making it, it was our goal. We were going to make it in an entirely different way. We were going to have it printed with a different company. It was going to have a hardcover cover and a metal spiral bound and all of these plans, right? And then we had some team turnover. The person that was working on it was no longer working here. And it came time to ask, because it was a fair part of the way done. And we had to decide, do we get it done or do we fold on this? And so we ended up finishing it. Those of you who had the very first version, the very first year, you can attest to, like, there was so many typos in that thing. It was, it was pretty embarrassing, to be honest. But we had to decide, do we hold or do we fold? And what we ended up doing is, I actually would qualify this as a fold because our plan for it was nowhere near what we actually did. Last year's was better. And this year's, I think, is even the content in the monthly astrology parts is even better. Like, that's better. But we still have not gone back to that plan of having it produced through this one company with the different cover and the spiral binding and all these extras. And we really folded on that dream for the planner for now. And the reason for it is because there isn't emotional, there isn't physical bandwidth, there isn't brain energetic power bandwidth to fulfill that dream. So what we did is we folded on that part of the dream. And it doesn't mean we don't do it. It just means that we're not doing it that way. And the way we're doing it right now is the way that we do it. And that's okay for right now. And it doesn't make us failures. And it doesn't mean that we weren't good enough. It means there were circumstances that made it more challenging. And we have to prioritize, just like everybody does, just like you do in your life. You have to prioritize in the day. Am I going to take care of my body today? Am I going to go on this lunch date? Am I going to put the clothes away? You have to pick, like, what means most to you right now. And we have other things that mean way more to us than getting a hardcover planner built. Like, we think it's great how it is, And so we folded on that dream to make it a certain way. And we could have really gotten stuck in pushing forward and feeling like energetically exhausted, could have dumped tons of money. Those of you, if you don't know physical products, making something like that does not make money. It's a definite, like, after we pay for design and whatnot, a negative expenditure for us, or earnings rather, profitable, negative. What am I? You know what I'm trying to say. And so we could, though, have kept stretching and saying, well, let's just do it because we want to be perceived a certain way. We want to look a certain way. But we had to say, no, it's not the time. It's not right now. It's not the right choice. And so we folded on that vision for now. Now, another example in my personal life of folding on something, and this is more of a energetic relationship thing, having to do with expectations and desires. And my husband, many of you know, he's a stay-at-home dad, but he definitely doesn't function like I would if I was a stay-at-home mom. I guess I work from home, so I am home with the kids all the time, just like he is. But he doesn't fulfill the role of, I think, what we would imagine many stay-at-home moms or other stay-at-home dads might do. He's not Mr. Dad, Mom in that way. And so there was a lot of hard in our relationship. I found talking to him very overwhelming every day. I felt like nothing was going the way I wanted it to, constant negative energy, constant arguing. And I had to ask myself, do I hold to this expectation that I have that things should be the way that I want them to be because I'm the one who provides for our family and I think I have the better ideas? And, I think I have the better parenting techniques, or do I fold on these expectations in the name of saving our family, of having actual harmony in our household because I'm releasing my grip on something? And so in that moment, I really had to ask myself, what is the best thing for me emotionally here? And the best thing for me emotionally was to fold them, not to hold them. So we pulled back on any activities that would get scheduled for the kids when I can't take them, because it was causing so much family strife. So I had to fold on some of that. And I had to fold on the requests that I would make of him or ask him to do certain things or run certain errands. And I really had to fold on that. And I was a mixed emotion experience for me to do that for sure. There's part of me that still feels like, yeah, but I mean, shouldn't I get what I want because X, Y, and Z? And that's an ongoing inner dialogue that I have to have. But in that moment in time, and this was a couple years ago, holding would have only dug me. Have you heard the story of Rumpelstiltskin, the Grimm fairy tale, where he gets so mad when she knows his name at the end that he stamps his foot into the ground and his body splits in two and he falls like into the earth. So that's the non children's version. Actually, my kids have heard that version. But he gets so mad, he stomps his foot and his body splits and he goes on the ground. Well, me trying to hold in that instance to this thing that I desired was making me feel a hell of a lot like Rumpelstiltskin. Hitting my foot on the ground and splitting myself in two constantly, while the other people in my life were not having that same emotional reaction. So for me, asking what's hard about this life that I'm living, what's overwhelming about this in the relationship, and having to decide it's just time to fold some of this right now, some of this expectation, some of these activities, some of this stuff that's on my schedule, so I have more time to do things with the kids, and just make it happy and make it easy and make it feel fun and free again, which it had not been feeling like. So I folded in that expectation, in my desire for how my daily life would look. I folded in some of that. And in that time, like the last 2 years, actually my daily vision for life and what I desire life to look like it changed with the changes I made. And we do things differently now. And I desire some different things now than I did 2 years ago because I did let go of that and I made space for something else. So when we do fold, because it's just the time to fold, what we do also is create space, letting go of that thing that we're holding on to so tight. That's just not good for us right at that moment in time. It's like the full moon release. You let it go and you make space for something you didn't even know to make space for. And so for me, with the planner, letting go of this very time consuming element of having it produced by a supplier and then having it stocked and then X, Y, and Z, like all the things, letting go of that made space for us to still produce that product, but do other things really, really well. Like those of you who are in our holistic witchery program, oh my gosh, in the last 3 years, it is epic. It is truly an epic program. But we made space by not putting effort into something else that didn't have as big of an impact because the contents inside the planner are the same as they would have been elsewise. It's just the distribution is different. How it looks is different. Getting it into more people's hands. That's something we've not been able to do, or we don't know yet how to do that. We know how to get it into hands of people who know us, but to expand that reach, we don't know that yet. And that's okay. We folded on that vision and that idea for that moment in time. I folded on my expectations for daily life at that time. And it let me see that actually there's a lot of other really cool ways to live my daily life that I had not been thinking of because I was so Rumpelstiltskinny in how I thought it should be. And being that way every day didn't allow me to see that there are other ways, actually, Sarah, Aquarius moon, who thinks you know everything. You don't know everything, Sarah. That's how it works in my head. I'd be like, Sarah, you don't know everything all the time. Step back and listen. And I had to do that by folding and then also holding, like building a business, moving my grandparents. The amount of times that I said, this isn't going to happen. I'm so sick of this. I actually said to my grandmother one day, and my grandmother, she's more like my mother than my grandmother, we're very close, and that's why she came. They have six siblings. Six children. My grandparents have six children, and I'm the one that was like, "You come live by me, grandparents," and but I actually did say to her one day, it's like, you know what, you just stay there. You stay there, but we will not be coming out like we are now. You are going to have to hire help. And she was like, fine. I'll do that. I'll do what I need to do. And then, we got off the phone with each other. I took a deep breath and I called her back and I said, I'm sorry I said that. This just feels really hard. and I'd like to make it work for everybody. And I did not fold. And it took months, but it worked out. And she did get out here. And the same with the business. The amount of times that I thought, I don't think that I'm cut out for this. What was I thinking? What am I doing? Oh my gosh, I can't let my husband know how much money has been sunk because then I'll have to have that conversation. And I held though, because I had to remind myself that things aren't always meant to be easy. Not everything is easy. There's the actual structure that's challenging, and then there's your inner body. And it's often your inner body that you have to work on the most. And you have to gain the grit and the resilience factor to keep doing things that feel hard. And that is it's just like exercising, like weightlifting. It is just like that. The more hard things that you do that are emotionally challenging, the stronger you get at doing emotionally challenging things. And you have to really ask yourself, am I folding because this just feels hard? And am I doing myself a disservice in doing that? So when you're looking at your vision for the week ahead, and this week things don't go as planned, you overplan, something comes up, know when to hold them and when to fold them on a daily basis. Remember, have grace with yourself. You're a different person later in the week than you are today. And the things you put on your calendar for later in the week, there is a future version of you that has yet to emerge that will have to actually do that. And sometimes you're just going to say, this was too much for me. I'm going to fold on this. And then with those big life structures, if something feels hard, overwhelming, it's just not going as anticipated, you have to have that talk with yourself. Am I folding because this just feels hard? Am I folding because I'm talking some kind of inner nonsense to myself that's not actually true? It's not that I'm not smart enough, I'm not good enough, this isn't right for me. Who do I think I am? It's true that this is just hard. Like, that's just true. And then do you need to fold it? And then the things where you decide, like, this is actually killing my mind, body, and spirit, and it's time for me to fold. And the examples I gave at that, our planner, it was not killing my mind, body, and spirit, but had we pushed through to do it the way we wanted to, it would have been financially a killer. It would have been emotionally for me one, because of trying to get it done, trying to manage vendors to get it done. And I would have been miserable. And so would Team TSE, because when I'm miserable, then it's like everyone goes down with the captain. So that would have been terrible. And then this with my marriage and my husband, like folding on the plans that I was making every day for my kids and our life, and saying, that I feel like Rumpelstiltskin, getting so mad and stomping my foot, and I am splitting myself in two. Meanwhile, everyone's sitting there with their golden spindle threads, just like, goodness, that seems like an overreaction. And having to fold on that vision, but then realizing that there's space for another way to make the life that I love. And, I'm so grateful I did fold on that, because now, August 18th, 2024, I think I have a great life. I'm very grateful for it, and I'm excited every day. And, it's not without hardship, but I have the capacity for it. And had I tried to hold on tight a couple years ago, where would I be today? I don't know. But I imagine that things would not have turned out quite like they have. So I'm grateful for knowing it was time to fold on that expectation, that vision, that desire that I had, and then let something else emerge. And it didn't mean it was easy to do. Folding is not easy, but we have to ask ourselves, like, what is the emotional, physical toll on me by continuing to move forward? The emotional, physical toll on me for letting go of the Sisters Enchanted, for example, when I decided to keep going, I had a vision that, we would change people's lives. And I had a vision that I would be able to release the other business that I had been working in and not have to see clients from 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday and all Saturday morning. And I had that vision, and I would have been folding on that vision. So the emotional, physical stress getting there was worth it because there was less on the other end, right? It's like the other side of the rainbow. And the same with moving my grandparents. All right, let me check back through the comments here. I have been sort of reading them as they come along here. And yeah, Lunar Planner is going nowhere. The astrology content for this year is more in depth. So you're going to have great information in there. And we still have big dreams for it. It's just sort of on the, when there's capacity for it. And I will tell you, we have a moon rituals book coming out this fall too, that the final touches are being put on. And every time we do something like this, I tell myself, never again. Yeah, here we are. doing it again. So Susan said, when I come to a crossroads in life, I ask 3 questions, adapted from a picture book version of Tolstoy's 3 questions. Who is the most important one? What is the most important right thing to do? And when is the best time to do it? And those answers change, but help you decide when to hold, when to fold. I like that. And Beth was sharing, I struggle with holding people to my standards and learning to let it go. Yes, I know it's so challenging. And I mean, there are some very clear times where we might say, but it needs to be done because of this. And I can relate to this in so many ways. So my husband and I, we've got 2 children. They're 7 and 10. They're both neurodivergent. And I was a teacher, and I specifically worked with kids with learning differences in private practice. I also did training in ADHD coaching for kids and adults and positive parenting discipline. So really using positive dialogue with children, not, look what you did. You made such a mess kind of dialogue. And my husband, he is old school kind of guy that says, look what you did. You should know better. And everything in my brain that I have spent like $50,000 to learn goes off. And it's like, no, stop, do not pass go. And I have to really remind myself, though, that my kids are loved. There is not, it's not like, it's not, this is not an, it's not a situation that is abusive, that I would need to leave, and remind myself that they're okay. There's a lot of fun and laughter in our household, and it's just a difference in style. It's a difference in preference in parenting. And we also do this with food and technology. I don't think my kids should watch TV every day, all day. I don't think my kids should eat tons of processed foods. My husband loves TV and processed foods. And I'm like, how did we even end up married? But so much of this didn't really come to a head until I was the one working full time and he was home during the day all day. And then this kind of emerged as a problem, right? So I had to step back and say, this man that I love and chose to marry. And in fact, I'm the one who, we didn't really have a proposal, but I was the one that said, I think it's time we get married. I did that. You didn't do it. I did it. And so I have to say, like, what is the foundation of that? And what do we have in common? And what makes us a good team? And what makes us good partners? And what do I love about him? And that's what I had to come back to. And that's what we emphasize in our family unit. And we're very clear with our kids about saying, mom and dad are 2 different people in some ways, just like you're going to meet different people when you go out in the workplace one day. You are going to have to work with a boss one day who thinks differently than you do. So we also use these experiences to have real world conversations with them. When I say, I don't value that as a meal, and that's okay that I don't value it as a meal. It doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. That's my preference. Not everybody in the world is me. It's not my preference that we talk to each other this way. Not everyone in the world is me. And spoiler alert, they're going to go out in the world one day and meet a lot of people that aren't like them and have to get along with them. So I think it's actually a beautiful opportunity to show that. And it took a lot of that inner work to do that, to let go and get there. Let's see. Jess was sharing, I'm working on making a side gig so I can take holistic witchery. Made 50 cents. Love it, Jess. Keep going. One foot in front of the other. That is the key. That's the $1 million business advice. Show up every day, talk to people, and one foot in front of the other. Carla was asking, how do you deal with fear of missing out when you have to let some things go to focus on 1 to 2 things? I think that there is so Carla, I think fear of missing out is an inner it's an inner situation, obviously. When you become very clear on what your priority is at this moment, your number one priority, and that priority is the most meaningful thing to you in your life right now, it becomes much easier to not let FOMO get in the way. So I have had to say no to all kinds of things over the last 8 years, to live the life that we live now. And I've felt really crappy about saying no to some of these things. And in the end, though, when I'm very super clear on what the biggest priority is, there's not a decision to be made because the decision's made for me about the thing that I have to focus on right now, and knowing why I'm doing it. And then, for me in that way, the FOMO would become saying no to my dream, like, well, what have I missed out on my dream because I just said no to this thing, in order to say yes to this other thing that got me farther away from my dream or just didn't help me get there. Right. So I think being super clear on what is most important to you right now, and why that's most important to you is going to help with that, I think, for me anyway. Let's see here. Checking in on any other. Susan shared embrace grace was a phrase on your vision board. Yes. And yep, you can get the lunar planner separate. The new one should be out in a couple months. So if you want to wait for that one. Teresa's mentioning needing to release standards I hold for myself. Can't ever possibly hope to meet them. Yeah. Like we gotta be kind to ourselves first and foremost, first and foremost. Beth was sharing, yeah, your North Star goal. Exactly. Your North Star goal. And Steph, a couple of you opposites attract. Yes, my husband and I are very different, but we're very similar. It's interesting where our personalities are very similar, but our interests are very different. Yeah, I'm very active. I'm very optimistic. I am like physically active. I like to go do things out in the woods and hike and paddleboard and explore. And my husband is not. But we are both people who like to laugh and have fun, and we do like to see new places, and we make similar jokes. We think the same things are funny. And so I think that that's important, that our personalities mesh, even if our interests are different. And, anyway, there we go. Yeah. FOMO is fear of missing out. Anyway. All right. So there you go. Go ahead, vision cast for the week ahead, put all of your appointments on there, anything where you have to be at a certain place at a certain time, that goes on first. And then from there, as Beth mentioned, your North Star goal, what is the thing that is most important to you this week? And often that can only be that 3 or fewer things. Like truly, you can only have 3 or fewer priorities in 1 week. If you work a job, that's one of them. That leaves you with 2. So for me in a week, that is a very typical week: work, homeschool, and then a third one, which is often, if we're traveling, then I don't have a priority because we're traveling. If we are home and some yard work needs to be done, or like a room needs to be cleaned out, that might be the third. Like doing pulling everything out of the fridge and taking food inventory, like that one thing will be the third focused. So like we don't have as much energy as we think we do. So getting a grip on the actual energy you have is very, very helpful. And then know when to hold them and when to fold them. And it's okay to fold them. You have permission. Give yourself permission to fold. But before you do, ask yourself, are you just expecting it to be easier than it's realistically going to be? Because if that's the case, consider holding and taking one more step forward. Each step you take will make you a little bit closer to where you want to go, and it will get easier each and every bit of the journey, because you'll get better at emotional resilience. You'll get better at grit. Your inner body will get stronger. And even when hard stuff happens, you will just get stronger and be more emotionally capable of the hard things that come your way. So that is a muscle that you have to build, though, through trying to build it. All right. Well, then, this is it for me today. Thank you all for hanging out. I hope you're having a great end of your summer. We actually still have like a whole month left of summer seasonally. That goes until September 21st. And if you're doing your good witch, bad bitch summer activities, take a break. I needed a break. My good witch, bad bitch summer has gone hard and I needed to relax. So I just pulled back yesterday. Took a deep breath and I really needed that. So have that for yourself. And you will have Patty joining you next Sunday for the live coffee chat. Patty Diaz will be here with you. And that is exciting. She's always got really good questions and thoughts. And yeah, so if you've not met Patty, you will enjoy speaking with her. All right, y'all. Well, thank you so much for being here. And I will see you all around the internet. Have a great day. If you love the podcast, be sure to leave us a rating or a review. That helps us to get the word out about all we're doing here at the Sisters Enchanted. Thanks for being part of our community, and we'll see you in the next episode.